What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. Everybody good? Everybody healthy? Everybody feeling all right? Everybody doing okay? Keeping your mind okay? Keeping the numbers and the tallies and where it's going on where? It's all everybody on point? Good. So let's take a minute and get off of that for a second and just talk about toys and nonsense. Today we're going to be talking about the Iconic 6, which is a conversation that I brought up briefly, I think, in last week's video, and it's something I've been wanting to touch on because there's a problem with it due to the confines of what this franchise is. But before we do, we're going to get into a little bit of house cleaning, but not much. Number one, this week I have a review coming of an MMC 2-pack. I'm going to be splitting that review into two separate reviews and doing each figure separately because I've been getting bombarded with people saying how much they appreciate having steady content. And because stuff isn't shipping like it used to, in order to give people something the next day, I'm splitting them up into two different videos in hopes that, much like this, it gets your mind off all of this for 10 minutes. And then the week after I have covered, and then I might even have the week after that covered, I am going to make sure that content stays consistent. Alright, the Dummies. A lot of people have hit me up about how to fix Jisk. Look, Jisk is his own beast. There's no fixing him. It's peaks and valleys with that fella. But I'm sure he'll come out of it on the other end okay. His setup is looking better than ever, so I have hopes. Last week's Sit Down Saturday, everybody seems to be kind of on board, so no issues there. I am hopeful that Make Toys will return in full swing. The Hot Toys Prime review, many people were just as disappointed with seeing it as I was, and I feel your pain. There's still, anytime I do something like that, people have the tendency to want to tell me that they don't buy Transformers that don't transform. I don't give a shit. We've had a lot of discussions on this channel about non-transforming figures, and that's covered. I'm not getting into that again. It's like the KO thing. Like, I've said my piece, I've engaged with the viewership in regards to their piece, and I'm done. The same thing happened on the video about non-transforming figures and their cost, right? The costs of no transformation. Like, let's stay focused. There's just no sense in talking about a subject that the content is not about. But I have covered that if you want to talk about it. And real quick before we get started, shout out to Chris Pinkerton, head of CRASHBOX. He has been working on these Arc and Nemesis diorama displays that are like preset for a DTOF. They come painted in the whole bit. If you're looking for something for your DTOF, hit him up. He's a master of his craft, and the link is in the description. And I think that pretty much brings us up to speed. So let's talk about the Iconic 6. And we're going to talk about this because iconic characters are super important to every franchise, and every franchise has a handful, if not more. Let's talk about big ones in America, right? DC, Batman, Superman, two of the most iconic characters on the planet. Instantly recognizable, you instantly know what they're about. When you see them, you understand them immediately. I think you could throw Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, and Green Lantern in that pocket now as well. Now, that's not to say that because they have a movie, they become iconic, because I think that Shazam has a movie, but I don't think that Shazam is super iconic. The same thing goes for Cyborg, unfortunately, because he was one of my favorite elements of the Justice League movie. He played that, like, robotic role perfectly. We'll get into it another time. I mentioned the movies because Marvel has more iconic characters now than ever because of their success of their cinematic universe. Spider-Man, easily their most recognizable, easily their most iconic. Wolverine, same thing. Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, Black Panther, Groot, Rocket, which are definitely more recent ones. All of these characters are very iconic. But let's take a look at them, right? Numbers-wise. Spider-Man, Wolverine, Black Panther, Hulk, Captain America, Iron Man, Rocket, Groot, maybe 8, right? And they may have more. I'm not saying these are the only ones, but these are like the first ones that spring to mind for me. Of those 8, Wolverine and Spider-Man and Captain America and Iron Man are probably their biggest 4. Maybe Black Panther. Let's say 5 for the sake of argument. It's also what you see the most toys of. You don't see a Marvel Legends line produce an X-Men wave without a Wolverine, really. And Marvel Legends has its own Spider-Man wave, solely based off the strength of that character. Plus they're on socks and bedspreads and blah, blah, blah. Justice League, same thing, right? But Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman are probably the 3 biggest standouts. Maybe Robin, due to Teen Titans and his history with Batman. And I'm just doing heroes, because Joker is obviously probably the most iconic villain in comic book history. But just looking around my room, I can tell you I have a lot more Batman and Superman figures at my fingertips than I do anything else. I'm laying a breadcrumb trail. Keep up. Star Wars. Star Wars has a ton of iconic characters, some of which are B-list at best. Darth Vader, Darth Maul, the Emperor, Kylo Ren for villains, instantly. And that's not to mention the Stormtrooper, which is also super iconic. But let's just do heroes. Obi-Wan, Han Solo, Princess Leia, like 3PO, R2, prequel-era Anakin, Rey, they're all iconic. Then they have B-list characters that are iconic. Boba Fett is iconic. And most of the merchandise also matches up with those icons. I have more Rey figures and Luke Skywalker figures and Darth Vader figures than I'll ever have of Tubes, which is a crying shame. Not really. I get it. but it's still a bummer. So where does that leave Transformers? It leaves it with 6, in my opinion. Optimus Prime and Bumblebee. No brainer, right? Villain-wise, Megatron and Starscream. Those are your top 4 most easily recognizable, most instantly iconic Transformer characters. The final 2 I would throw in would be Soundwave and Grimlock. Grimlock mainly for the T-Rex element, Soundwave mainly because of the tapes and boombox radio element. Before people start saying who they think are iconic, that's fine and cool. If I were to give runners-up, I would give it to Devastator, Shockwave, Omega Supreme, and maybe Skyfire. But I don't think they reached the top 6. Now, is that a bad thing? Depends. Depends on the context of that question. Is it a bad thing for the franchise? Absolutely not. Having 6 characters that are so easily recognizable, so iconic to pop culture is outstanding. You can take pretty much any schmuck on this planet and show them a picture of Bumblebee or Optimus Prime. They instantly know who they are, not unlike Superman and Batman. What is this? Little claw hands? That amount of characters that remain popular, that are in many iterations, right? Optimus Prime is in everything, Bumblebee's pretty much in everything, and certainly going to be in everything they do from this point forward, I would say. Obviously, they weren't in Beast Wars, and Prime kind of was, and whatever, and they weren't in some of the Armada stuff and all that, but for the most part, Prime and Bumblebee are your staples, and I doubt you'll ever see a show without the 2 of them in it in some capacity ever again. But the fact that they're so much ingrained in American pop culture now is going to continue the success of that franchise, which is a good thing for us who are fans of the franchise. What does it mean for collectors, though, is an entirely different question, and let me tell you why. Prime collectors couldn't be happier, because they're going to have Primes from now until Kingdom Come. It's never going to stop. Optimus Prime will never stop being produced. It's too much of a goldmine of a character. The father of a latchkey generation. I don't know if there's any Bumblebee collectors out there, I'm not sure that I've ever met him, but I have met a Starscream collector, and he's probably going to be covered for all time as well. The problem comes down to being a completionist. Now, completionists can be defined a number of different ways. Some people want to have one everything, they're nuts, and they must be dealing with a lot of space or a lot of clutter. It's got to be one or the other. I am a completionist in the sense where I want every character from the cartoon represented on a shelf. And then there's a few outside of the cartoon that I would throw in for good measure. But the more you stray from the 6, the less plausible it becomes that that is a reality. Case in point, how many Soundwaves are available? Hasbro aside, let's take a look at third party. We got a Fans Toys one coming. I think there's 2 Iron Factories available. Hot Soldiers. I'm sure more Legends are coming. There's a Soundwave that's going to turn into a Hiss Tank, etc., right? And he is a bottom tier of my 6. Grimlock. It's uncountable. G Creations, Toy World, Fans Toys, Gigapower, The War Within one that never came out, Iron Factory, DX9, Fans Project, etc. Bottom tier character of the 6. Starscream. Make Toys iGear twice. Impossible Toys. Magic Square. New Age. Iron Factory. Amos Toys that was never released, etc. This goes on and on. Megatron. I think Fans Toys might be the only one that hasn't done it. Make Toys twice. MMC. Iron Factory. New Age. DX9 twice. The War Within one. The other War Within one. Bumblebee. New Age. Moss Toys. Impossible Toys. Toy World. 3A, Zeta, I'm sure more are coming. Optimus Prime, everybody but Fans Toys, and maybe even Fans Toys at this point. It's just printing money because they're the most popular characters. How many cups do we have? Do you know what I mean? In the moment that we see a company going too far off the iconic characters, the moment that we see them snap right back like a rubber band right back to it. Case in point would be Make Toys. We got a Target Master, Cross Dimensions Prime. And I would be willing to bet that Cross Dimensions Prime outsold the Target Master just because of popularity and how important that character is. The gift and the curse of G1 is the abundance of characters that ended up meaning a lot to a generation of children. The gift is we had all those characters. The curse is we may never get them represented the way we'd like. Not all of them anyway. Hopefully. I have hope. But even my runner-up choices like Shockwave and Devastator have far more representations because they're relying on the strength of the character and how that character has stood up over time. And how a character stands up over time is ultimately always going to serve the franchise and the fan. And as long as that character can remain relevant, it can always be cashed in on. The problem with Transformers is that, for instance, Dead End is my favorite character, and by the luck of the draw, we have a ton of them now. But he's a Season 2 character and part of a combiner that had a gimmick. So what happens for the person whose favorite character is Sandstorm? The options are going to be far less plentiful. So this becomes a baseline conversation for future conversations, so I can just say the iconic 6 and you know what I mean. But it's also a conversation to say that whenever a character is produced that is obscure, it's probably best to take a chance and support it if you want to see more of the obscure characters produced, because the more that fail, the less likely it is that you'll ever see the character that you love that may be obscure produced. The plentiful amount of characters that mean something to someone in this fandom is the gift and the curse of this franchise. Be safe out there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.